Buzz with Jess Lujan.
We're talking marathon on this edition of The Buzz. We have Derek Mandel, who's a Olympian, Guam Olympian, and Ben Ferguson, who's the race director for the second annual 2014 Guam International Marathon that's happened here the 13th, I think it is, right? 13th?
That's right.
Sunday the 13th?
April 13th.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Ben, again, tell me this event. We've got athletes coming in from different countries.
We have got, I believe we've got athletes coming in from around 12 different countries. We've got athletes coming in from the Philippines, from Hong Kong, from China, from Taiwan, from Japan, from Korea. We've even got an athlete coming in from the Netherlands. We've got an athlete coming in from Ireland. Of course, stateside athletes, and of course all of our resident athletes. So yeah, we're pretty well represented internationally.
And you're having not only serious athletes, but you also have recreational athletes as well that are coming.
Of course.
And this race is that.
And in fact, I think that makes up the bulk of our runners. I would say that 95% of our runners are recreational runners. And we've got 5% that are probably really, really serious about this.
Sure. Now let me ask you, Derek, as well. I mean, you know, as an Olympian, you've had to travel thousands of miles to compete in your events, and you know, in regards to acclimation, we've got I mean, now our neighbors, they're not too far away, but you know, they have the seasons. You know, they're spring. It's not as cold anymore. It's a lot cooler than it is in Guam. Now, athletes in general, how long for yourself, if you had it your way, to get to a place that's, say, maybe like Colorado, okay, to run a marathon over there, of course with the altitude. So people come in here, the serious runners now at this point, in regards to acclimation, if they're coming from, say, a colder environment, what is the ideal time to get to, say, Guam now, in regards to acclimation is concerned?
The time frame, well, I've traveled from the States to Guam after being in the States for, you know, years at a time. And I found that it takes about a couple weeks to really adjust to the, you know, the humidity and the heat. But hopefully the runners coming in don't adjust until they leave.
You're using it to your advantage, right?
But yeah.
You're not gonna have somebody with a bat, right?
No.
Tanya Hardy.
Yeah, Tanya Hardy. You're not gonna put a Tanya, right?
No,
there we go.
Not this time.
No, Ben, let me ask you in regards to the course. There's always a you know, degree of difficulty. Now, everything in consideration, you know, the course layout, hills and things of that nature, humidity, the heat, and all that. What would you say, or I guess the certifying body, the race certifying body, what do they label this marathon as in regards to degree of difficulty?
Well, you know, I think they would rank it high. On a scale of 1 to 10, I think they would probably give it a 7 or an 8. Okay. And the primary reason for that is the heat and the humidity. Our race course is by no means hilly. There's a few small hills here and there. You run up the JFK Hill, up to the Kmart intersection, and then you run down Marine Drive. But it's primarily the heat and the humidity is the thing that really makes this a difficult race course.
You're starting earlier this year for the full marathon, right?
We are. We're starting at 3 a.m. Wow. So for most runners, that will take them out of the hottest part of the day. You know, the average finishing time for a marathon between 4 and 5 hours, so that's going to put most of our finishers coming in between 7 and 8 a.m., which is, you know, still you've lived out here your whole life. You know that it's still warm around that time, but it's certainly better than finishing between 8 and 9 or 9 and 10.
Derek, you have a head start on this thing, because you're not going to use a bat, but you know what? You got the potholes in your sight. You know where they are.
Yes.
We'll have those marked, by the way. We will have those marked for our visitors.
Now let me ask you, because you're having, you know, you have the full marathon, you have a half marathon, you have the 10K, you have the 5K. So how do you start this out? I mean, how do you decipher again? You know, I mean, you're going to have tons. I mean, you have tons of people coming for this thing. How do you manage this, and how do you start this out? Because again, for people are going to get there around the same time.
Actually, the races start at different times.
Okay.
So the marathon starts at 3 a.m. The half marathon starts at 4:30. 5K starts at 5:15, and then the 10K at 5:30. So we're able to start the races in waves, so that everyone's not going out at the same time. Where it gets a little interesting is out on the race course where you've got all of these folks coming back, and you're passing people. You don't know whether they're running the marathon or the half marathon, and Derek can attest to that. I mean, sometimes he'll be running next to someone that he thinks maybe is running the marathon, and maybe they're actually running the half marathon. So
now let me ask you, as an official, when you're keeping the official times and this like that, you know, because you're starting different times, but the time you're starting and things like that, is this a
bit of a headache?
An official nightmare? You know, in regards to the times.
Every runner has a timing chip that they wear on their shoe, and the timing chip when they cross over an RFID mat is what tells the timer what time they finish the event in. Each runner, each race has a separate colored bib, so we're able to look at a runner and tell immediately what race they're running in based on the color of their bib and their number.
Now, in this chip that they're wearing in their shoe, is there any time? I mean, they have to, as they call in, you know, I guess I'm hearing these things now in regards to tracking. Is the handshake? Is there a handshake between one?
They're out on the race course. There are predetermined points where they cross over a mat. And that mat will tell the timer back at the timing tin when they cross over that mat, and that's all done over the internet. So what's interesting about our race as well is that if Derek, for example, if he wants friends and family to be able to track his progress while they're back in the States, they can go into a particular website, ChronoTrack, and follow Derek's progress based on real time, based on his timing chip. So they'll be able to figure out when he passes through certain points on the race course, including the halfway point. So kind of a cool feature, and that feature applies to everyone that's running the marathon or the half marathon.
And of course, you'll have to communicate with the folks tracking you and say, this is my number, this is where I am, and then they'll have to log in, I guess, a certain I guess, number that you have to
key in his race number.
Key in your race number. That's fantastic. This is the first year you
Derek
did this?
might not like that.
If I'm doing well,
you're doing good. It's a good thing.
Yeah. I was going to have somebody drop me off, you know, coming down JFK Hill and then finish the race. Hey, I did it without the sweat. But anyway, is this second year you're doing this as well?
The second year.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow, that's
yes. We had the same timing system. We use a company called JTL Timing. They do a lot of events out here. They do Cocoa and they just did it Xterra. So do a real good job. They do a lot of large events, and so a very reputable company. Always deliver great results. Which, you know, at the end of the day, everybody's running to achieve a particular time. That's the one thing you have to get right is people's race time.
Quickly. How does Derek prepare for this marathon? How long? When did you start? How long? I mean, of course, you were thinking about this since last year, but really, officially, how long does it take one like yourself to prepare for this marathon?
Well, I run year round, so I kind of never have a break in between.
Yeah. Okay.
But as far as like focusing like my training regimen towards this event, I'd say about 5 to 6 months.
5 to 6 months out.
Yeah.
Okay. And do you break your training down in phases? I mean, this first phase is what I'm doing and things like that, because it's a misconception, right? For people to say, if Derek said long distance runner, every time you run, you're running long distance. Is that the truth? I mean, are there times where you go out there just to run speed versus maybe more again a longer period of time? How do you adjust? How do you train, basically?
Well, just from a general description of it, it's kind of like a pyramid. You're building your base early, so you're trying to get all the big mileage in first, and then as it gets closer to the actual race, you kind of try to reach your peak. And so you run less and less, and you'll feel a lot fresher and hopefully produce a faster time.
So, I mean, it's like, you know, when I used to compete, you know, we timed how we look to peak right there on stage, you know, and it's tricky because sometimes you peak before, sometimes you look your best that night after you're not being judged. Is that kind of like how it works sometimes in regards to trying to time your peak? Like you may have peaked the day before, and then now you hit the wall as soon as you start in the race.
Yeah, of course.
Can you miss it?
Yeah, you can peak too early, and then you can not be in the right, you know, shape at the time of the race. But yeah, it's the same general concept, just a lot skinnier, but yeah.
Not hungrier?
Yeah. But it's just proper timing.
Now we talk about, and Ben, you're an athlete as well. You talk about, of course, the physical being, but how important is it again for your body and your mind to be in sync for that day?
Oh, like before big races, I usually mentally prepare for it. I go through the race in my head and just kind of meditate about it. And then I find that when the actual race comes, you feel like you've been there before, and it's familiar territory. So mental aspects important too.
So when you're running and your first mile, to keep you from saying, oh man, I got 25 more miles to go. What is in your mind? How do you focus in on that you're not thinking of miles, not thinking of how many hours, all that. What do you have to go through?
You just zone out, especially for a race this long. You would try to not focus about what you're about to do until the miles become less and less. If you try to be in race mode from the start, you're going to be so drained mentally, and you're just going to not have that fight anymore towards the end. So.
There we go. I tell you what, when we come back, we're going to get the details again: times, where, what, when, and how. Okay, we'll be right back.